Waitress helps billionaire's anorexic daughter eat again. The next day, her life changed forever. What if a simple act of kindness could transform two lives forever? Lisa wiped down the corner booth at Rosie's diner for the third time that evening, her weathered hands moving with the practiced rhythm of someone who'd been serving coffee and comfort for 15 years. The autumn rain drummed against the windows, casting dancing shadows across the empty restaurant. She was about to flip the sign to closed, when the bell above the door chimed. A man in an expensive coat stepped inside, his eyes filled with a desperation that money couldn't hide. Behind him, a fragile teenage girl moved like a ghost, her oversized sweater hanging loose on her thin frame. The man's voice cracked slightly as he asked, "Are you still serving?" Lisa looked at the girl's hollow eyes and something deep in her heart stirred. She'd seen that look before, in her own mirror, years ago. "Of course, honey. Come sit wherever you'd like. Where are you watching from tonight?" Lisa had always believed that everyone who walked through Rosie's doors was carrying something heavy. Tonight felt different though, as she watched the well-dressed man guide his daughter to the corner booth. The girl's name was Sophia, she learned, and her father was Michael. His business card, left casually on the table, revealed he owned half the commercial buildings downtown. But wealth meant nothing when your child was disappearing before your eyes. "She hasn't eaten a real meal in months," Michael whispered when Sophia excused herself to the restroom. His voice carried the weight of countless doctor visits and failed treatments. Every specialist, every facility, every therapy. Nothing works. She just gets thinner. Lisa's heart clenched. She'd fought her own battles with food in her 20s, after her divorce left her feeling worthless and alone. Back then, controlling what she ate felt like the only power she had left. When Sophia returned, Lisa approached their table with a different energy. Instead of reciting the menu, she sat down across from the girl. "You know what I love most about working here?" she asked gently. "Every single dish tells a story. This apple pie recipe came from my grandmother, who made it during the Great Depression when sugar was precious. She'd say food isn't just nutrition, it's love made visible." Sophia's eyes flickered with something that might have been interest. For the first time that evening, she looked directly at Lisa. "I used to bake with my mom," she said, her voice barely audible. "Before she died." Michael's face crumpled slightly. His wife had passed 2 years ago from cancer, and Sophia's eating disorder had begun shortly after. The guilt was eating him alive. He'd thrown himself into work to cope with grief, leaving his daughter to navigate her loss alone. Now he was desperately trying to undo damage that felt irreversible. Lisa reached across the table and gently touched Sophia's hand. What was her favorite thing to make? The question hung in the air like a bridge between past and present. Sophia's eyes filled with tears, but for the first time in months, she didn't pull away from human contact. Outside, the rain continued to fall, washing the world clean for whatever would come next. "Chocolate chip cookies," Sophia whispered, a tear rolling down her cheek. "Every Sunday morning. The whole house would smell like vanilla and butter." Lisa felt her own eyes moisten as she watched this broken girl remember better days. Michael shifted uncomfortably, his expensive watch catching the diner's fluorescent light. He'd sold their family home after his wife's death, thinking a fresh start would help. Instead, he'd erased the very memories Sophia needed most. Lisa excused herself and disappeared into the kitchen. When she returned 20 minutes later, she carried a plate of warm chocolate chip cookies, their edges golden and centers still soft. "I keep this recipe for special occasions," she said, setting them down. "My secret ingredient isn't chocolate, it's the belief that food can heal hearts, not just bodies." Sophia stared at the cookies as if they might disappear. Her hands trembled as she reached for one, then stopped. "I can't," she whispered. "Every time I try to eat, I hear this voice telling me I don't deserve it. That if I get bigger, I'll take up too much space, like I did when Mom was sick." Michael's face went white. During his wife's final months, he'd insisted Sophia stay quiet in the house, thinking peace would help her mother heal. He'd unknowingly taught his daughter that her presence was a burden. The realization hit him like a physical blow. He hadn't just lost his wife, he'd failed his daughter when she needed him most. Lisa knelt beside Sophia's chair. "Honey, your mom didn't get sick because you took up space. Love doesn't work that way. The people who truly care about us want us to be big and bright and fully alive." She broke off a small piece of cookie. "What if we start with just a tiny taste? Not because you have to, but because these cookies carry good memories, and you deserve to feel those again." The diner fell silent except for the gentle hum of the refrigerator. Michael watched, hardly breathing, as his daughter slowly lifted the cookie piece to her lips. When she tasted it, her eyes closed, and for a moment, she looked like the little girl who used to help her mother in the kitchen. It was the first food she'd eaten voluntarily in 3 months. If this moment touched your heart, please give the video a thumbs up. Something magical was beginning to unfold in that small diner, but the real challenge was just beginning. Would this tiny breakthrough be enough to save a life that was slowly slipping away? The next morning, Michael called the diner in tears. Sophia had woken up screaming from nightmares, convinced that eating the cookie had betrayed her mother's memory. She'd locked herself in the bathroom, and Michael could hear her crying through the door. "I don't know what to do," he sobbed into the phone. "She's worse than before. Maybe I should take her back to the hospital." Lisa's heart shattered. She'd seen this pattern before. 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. Recovery wasn't a straight line, especially when grief tangled with illness. "Bring her here," she said firmly. "Not to eat, just to talk. Sometimes healing happens in the spaces between meals." When they arrived, Sophia's eyes were red and swollen. She wouldn't look at Lisa, shame radiating from her small frame. Michael looked exhausted, his perfectly styled hair disheveled from running his hands through it all night. The weight of potentially losing his only remaining family member was crushing him. Lisa led them to the kitchen, where she was preparing the day's soup. "Want to know a secret?" she asked Sophia, who remained silent. "After my divorce, I stopped eating too. Not because I wanted to be thin, but because I felt like I didn't deserve nourishment. I thought starving myself was proof that I was strong, in control." She stirred the pot slowly, her voice gentle but honest. "But I wasn't strong. I was disappearing, just like you are. And you know what saved me? A therapist who told me that healing doesn't happen all at once. Some days you win, some days the illness wins. The goal isn't perfection, it's showing up, even when it's hard." Sophia finally looked up, her voice barely a whisper. "What if I can't do it? What if I'm too broken?" Michael's breath caught in his throat. His daughter had never voiced her deepest fear before. Lisa knelt down to meet Sophia's eyes. "Then we'll figure it out together. Your dad loves you so much he's willing to try anything. I see it in how he looks at you, like you're his whole world." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Your mom loved you that same way. Eating doesn't dishonor her memory, it honors the life she gave you." The kitchen filled with the warm smell of homemade soup, and something shifted in the air between them. Have you ever faced something that felt impossible to overcome? Let us know in the comments. Sophia was about to make a choice that would change everything, but first, she needed to find the courage to believe she was worth saving. 3 weeks later, Sophia walked into Rosie's diner carrying a small notebook. Inside were recipes she'd found in her mother's things, dishes they'd never gotten to make together. "I want to try cooking again," she announced, her voice stronger than it had been in months. "But I need help." Lisa's eyes filled with tears. This was the breakthrough they'd all been hoping for, but she knew it would still be difficult. Sophia had gained 2 pounds since that first night, enough to keep her out of the hospital but not nearly enough to be safe. Each meal was still a battle between the voice in her head and her desperate desire to heal. Michael had made changes too. He'd sold his largest office building and started working from home, determined to be present for his daughter's recovery. The guilt of his wife's death and his own emotional absence had nearly destroyed him, but watching Lisa's patient kindness with Sophia taught him that love meant showing up, especially when it was hard. "Let's start with your mom's famous Sunday pancakes," Lisa suggested, pulling out ingredients. As they cooked together, Sophia shared memories she'd kept locked away. Her mother's laugh when flour got everywhere. The way she'd dance around the kitchen while mixing batter. How she'd insist that cooking was an act of love, for others and yourself. The hardest moment came when the pancakes were ready. Sophia sat in front of the stack, paralyzed by fear. "She's watching me," she whispered. "I can feel her, and I'm scared she'll be disappointed if I'm not perfect." The eating disorder voice was fighting back, trying to reclaim control. Michael reached across the table and took his daughter's hand. "Mom would be proud that you're fighting," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "She'd want you to live, to be happy, to take up all the space in the world that you need." It was the first time he'd talked about his wife without crying. Lisa watched as Sophia slowly cut a small piece of pancake and brought it to her mouth. Each bite was an act of rebellion against the illness that had stolen so much from their family. When she finished half the stack, she looked up with syrup on her chin and smiled. Really smiled, for the first time since her mother's death. If you've been enjoying this story and want to see more heartwarming tales like this one, please subscribe to our channel. But Sophia's journey was far from over, and the most important lesson was yet to come. 6 months later, Sophia stood behind the counter at Rosie's diner, wearing an apron that read, "Assistant Baker." Her cheeks had filled out, her smile came easier, and she'd grown 3 inches as proper nutrition allowed her body to heal. But more than physical recovery, she'd found purpose in helping others who struggled with food and loss. "Table 4 ordered the chocolate chip cookies," she told Lisa, grinning. "I told them about the secret ingredient." These cookies had become legendary in their small town, not for their taste but for their story. Word had spread about the diner where a girl learned to eat again, and families dealing with similar struggles often made pilgrimages to the corner booth where it all began. Michael had established a foundation in his wife's name, providing free therapy and nutrition counseling for families affected by eating disorders. He'd learned that his wealth meant nothing if he couldn't share his love, and watching his daughter help others heal had taught him the true meaning of success. The foundation operated out of a building adjacent to the diner, creating a safe space where food and feelings could coexist. Lisa had enrolled in night school to become a certified nutrition counselor, combining her natural empathy with professional training. At 43, she was building a new career focused on helping people develop healthy relationships with food. The scared, lonely woman who'd hidden behind work schedules and forced smiles had transformed into someone who understood that healing others could heal yourself. The most profound change came in their understanding of grief. Sophia no longer saw eating as a betrayal of her mother's memory, but as a way of honoring the life her mother had given her. She'd learned that missing someone didn't require shrinking herself into nothing, and that taking care of her body was actually the greatest tribute she could offer to a woman who'd loved her unconditionally. On quiet Tuesday evenings, when the diner was nearly empty, the 3 of them would cook together. Michael had learned to make his wife's famous soup, Sophia perfected her mother's bread recipe, and Lisa shared techniques passed down from her grandmother. These moments weren't about the food itself, but about the connections it created and the love it represented. The corner booth where their story began now held a small plaque, "In memory of all we've lost and in celebration of all we can still find." Customers often asked about its meaning, and Sophia would share pieces of her story, helping others understand that recovery was possible, even when hope felt impossible. As the autumn rain began to fall again, exactly 1 year after that first night, Lisa looked around the diner that had become so much more than a restaurant. It was a place where broken people learned to be whole again, where food meant love instead of fear, and where 3 strangers had become family. If you enjoyed this story, please remember to like this video, share your thoughts in the comments about how food and love have connected in your own life, and subscribe for more heartwarming stories. Thank you for joining us on this journey of healing, hope, and second chances. Until next time, remember that sometimes the most ordinary moments hold the most extraordinary magic.